Hey guys, welcome back to the Home Selling Homies video podcast. I'm Phil Larkin.
I'm Brad Harvey.
I'm Brittany Burns.
I'm Laura Blado.
Thanks for checking us out today. We've got a fun, exciting episode for you talking about the buying process. So we're going to break this down as far as what it will look like for a buyer to decide they're going to buy a home or decide they're ready to move until they get to the point of making an offer. Offer to close will be another video. Otherwise, this one will be 45 minutes long. And
You
stuff
guys are
will get
telling us
thrown.
that that's too long for you. So
Yeah. 35 minutes plus. We're trying not to do that anymore. So we're going to jump right in and start with the buying process as far as what your first step should be and where to go from there.
Mhm.
Laura, would you like to
yeah, sure.
jump in?
So my recommendation for anybody who's considering buying, whether you know you're going to buy or you're just now thinking about maybe I'm going to buy, is to give an agent, a realtor, a call to walk you through the process, get you set up with a reputable lender, not Rocket Mortgage, and they would take a look then at your credit scores and your pre-approval of dollar amounts, and then we can work together to decide if now is the time for you because it fits into your budget and you're ready and prepared and can find something that you're looking for in your price bracket, or if we can work together to figure out how to build on what you're at right now to be able to buy in 6, 12, 18 months so that you can get what you're actually looking to purchase. But I think that your first stop should be your realtor, just so you understand the process, and then we'll set you up with a lender so that you know where you're going to fall in that process.
And this question did come in from one of our viewers about, do we start with the realtor? Do we start with the lender? Do we start looking at houses? How does that work? And
Yeah.
you know, Laura feels that you should start with the realtor. If you start with the lender, that's great also.
Yeah,
you
can
can't
start
go
with a
wrong.
lender first too. Yeah.
Can't go wrong there. So if you
And I think I totally agree with you. You know, get somebody who can be on your side,
Yeah.
a real estate agent, and then we can direct you to a lender, because a lot of times they don't really, the buyers may not know really what they're qualified to even look at. You know, they start looking at homes before they actually call their realtor. You know, they're interested in buying, so they're already
So
looking
often.
at homes. So,
What would you estimate the buyer, the first point of contact that you get from buyers? What would you estimate those folks have already looked at, are already looking at houses before ever contacting you or the bank?
100%.
100%.
100?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like
wouldn't-
physically in the house or
No,
looking
on the
online?
internet, like
yeah.
online.
Online.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, online.
Is that what
No,
you're saying?
I was
Oh.
thinking you've literally had a conversation already. I would say mine's probably close to 80% have
Mhm.
not been to the bank yet.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that seeing more of my buyers already had the banking discussion started.
Started, yeah.
And they might not have the
Yeah.
pre-approval already through, but they've at least talked with the lender on the phone. Hey, this is what we make. This is what we're thinking about doing, and the lender is at least giving them some advice. I've
Yeah.
seen that number change. I think get bigger over the last couple of
Yeah.
years.
I would agree.
When we started about 5 years ago, I would say there was a lot of people who, a large majority had never been to the bank yet.
Yep.
Mhm.
But nowadays, the last couple of years, it seems like everybody has at least picked somebody they want to talk to, or they've met with them already, because
For sure.
they've been trained over the last couple of years, knowing that they've probably lost out on buying their dream house because they weren't approved. And
Right.
so they're much more prepared than they were before.
I think
Mhm.
the last 3 years, with as hectic as the market has been and losing out on things, has definitely changed the landscape of buyer pre-approvals.
Hmm.
I also think that within the last 3 years, technology has changed in the way of when you pop onto any site and you start looking how many ads are on the side to get pre-approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so simple now that even the young first-time home buyers that are afraid at first
Mhm.
to go into the bank and see where their credit score is at, they're like, oh, well, if it's only 3 clicks and I can get the process started,
Yeah.
that's not scary.
You don't need to go to the bank anymore.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
you can get a pre-approval from your couch. You don't need to
Yeah.
do. It's you type in your income, you type in
Mm-hmm.
estimated amount for your debts as far as monthly payments look like, and they'll spit something out to you right away.
Yeah.
Do
And
you
even-
do you work for Rocket Mortgage?
I don't, but even a local lender, local institution, which is always highly recommended
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
an internet firm that's in another state. Most local lenders now, or banks or credit unions, have a great online presence
Mhm.
because that's where people are and that's where
Right.
people want to
They're
be.
being competitive.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have you had buyers that go on to say Zillow? I know Zillow has all the calculators, home affordability
Mhm.
calculator, your pre-approval type stuff. I think some buyers are a little bit misled in what they can really
a little
afford.
bit. I think
Yeah.
super misled,
Yeah.
which is a huge pet peeve of mine because it breaks their heart when they come to us, or they think we're lying, or that a lender's like a local lender is lying when we're sitting down and they're realizing, I thought I could afford a lot more than this, but nobody actually walked me through what, like, you're gonna have out of pocket expenses that you need to be prepared for.
Right.
You need to know how much that is before you can decide what your down payment is, because your down payment doesn't include your out of pocket expenses, like for a home inspection or for, a moving truck or garbage cans. Have you checked how expensive those are lately?
It's also really hard for a buyer that has been, maybe they did the online calculator and they're like, oh, I can afford this. And they're looking at a really different class of home.
Yeah.
And then they're in their mind, they're thinking, well, this is what we're going to be in. They should be comfortable, affordable. And then they find out their budget's actually $75,000 lower than that.
Yeah.
Those are two very different classes of
Very.
homes. I mean, that's the difference between a brand new construction home and a potentially 30-year-old outdated home.
Exactly.
Or you have a buyer who's coming from renting and maybe they're spending $1,000 a month on a rental and they
Yeah.
think, well, I can just apply that to a home. Well, there's upfront costs. You have closing costs that can range in the thousands. And then you have your home expenses. You're paying for all your utilities that maybe you weren't when you're renting.
Yeah.
Your water heater breaks, you got to fix that. So, I mean, there's a lot of, like you said, outside costs that you don't realize right away.
Yeah, and you're not getting that whole picture from taking 3 seconds to fill out an online questionnaire to determine how much you can afford.
Which is a huge reason why we all refer to certain lenders,
Yeah.
because it's the lack of education that creates those problems.
Yeah, and I don't have any specific, arrangements with any lenders, but I do refer to people who have shown me time and time again that they are really excellent at communication and really do everything they can above and beyond the call of duty to get something, even if a hiccup happens, to make sure that they're on top of it and that they're following the process and they're not just passing it along to, a processor in Michigan or Canada or who knows where. I think it's very important to use somebody that the process has been proven, right? And that they're shown success in getting things closed on time, or even just being really easy to work with in the case of things getting challenging, because almost every deal has hiccups. Almost.
Absolutely. So what does your 5-step process look like when you meet? Let's say you met Brad tonight. He's a first-time home buyer. He calls you. What does it look like from start to making an offer? What do you have, like a first-time buyer meeting? What do you go through?
Yeah, I typically do. If it's not convenient for scheduling, to meet in person, which I would prefer, because it's so much easier to get the feel. I can read,
Whether they're
a lot of
nervous or
emotions.
excited,
Yeah.
experienced. Yeah, I agree.
I've just been doing this long enough now where I can tell if I'm flashing through some listings in your price bracket on the, I typically have them broadcast on a large TV on the wall. If I can see your face light up at something, I kind of get a feel for what it is that you're really truly looking for, even if you've given me your must-haves, negotiables, must-not-haves, because 9 times out of 10, it's not exactly the picture that you had painted on paper that you end up purchasing.
Right. You start to really, and that meeting allows you to really determine what are wants versus needs.
Yeah,
Because
and
people start out with
personalities. Like, I'm asking questions about your lifestyle, not just what kind of bedroom, bathroom, like 5 years from now, do you plan on having kids? Because is school district going to be important to you at that point? If you think you're going to stay in that house for more than 3 years or 5 years, and you're going to be evolving as a family or whatever the case may be, but just in this circumstance, you need to think about those things now, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's everyone's favorite way to get listings to people? What
To
where
send
should
them.
people be looking? Where we all know where people are looking.
Yeah, not a fan of those sites because they're not, especially right now as we start to get into the very busy spring market. They're not accurately reflecting their active statuses. Most of them end up being under contract, and then they get again mad at us that we didn't know that.
A lot of times I'm educating the first time a buyer says, well, I saw this house on Zillow, can you tell me if it's available? Well, unfortunately it's not, because like you said, it's a little bit misleading. I always have to have a little bit of like an education course on how to interpret Zillow,
Right.
which is kind of a bummer because it is the number one search site for all homes.
It is.
And people, even if you have them on a home watch that we specifically put out there, which is our MLS system, it's going to be the most accurate possible.
And
Yeah.
fastest.
And the
up to
fastest,
date.
you're going to get the most up-to-date listings, but they still will go and look at Zillow, which I understand. You want to see homes.
I think they're doing that because that's where the for sale by owners are, which is a whole nother topic. But
Well, and
that's
there's-
kind of the gist that I'm getting.
Yeah.
Well, there's always homes on that site
Yeah.
where when we have them on a home watch and you're getting emails whenever something new comes up, you might go a couple of days without having one that fits
Yeah.
in your
Absolutely.
price range and your criteria.
Yeah, you're
So I
right.
can certainly see the urgency that people have. But I always tell them, ask me if it's still available, because I will go show it to you. But there's always that education step
Yeah.
first, because it's usually a little bit misleading.
It's totally misleading, and it bothers me that I always have to let people down and have the conversation about. A lot of agents pay Zillow for leads being new buyers coming to those sites, asking for an agent to contact them to give them more information about a property. So agents are paying, I am not, by the way, agents are paying to have those new people coming to them to feed their business. And if they were to accurately reflect those houses as having an accepted offer already, those buyers wouldn't, a certain percentage of buyers would not be directed to those agents paying for those leads. So they keep the status active as long as they possibly can. And it is misleading, and it is hard for a buyer to understand that right now in the market, when things are fast paced, that they just missed out on something they thought was totally the one, and that's frustrating. So I personally set them up in our agent portal,
Not Agent EDU.
No,
We just got rid of
we
that.
just got rid of that. That's why I was like, no, that's not right. But yeah, the direct access into the MLS with the criteria that they're using on their Zillow search.
Right.
And
And
then
every brokerage, so every realtor that you call, I shouldn't say every, vast majority of the realtors that you call will have a portal site that will set up a home
Yep.
search, a home watch is what we call it, for people that will run directly off the MLS. And our MLS actually offers
Yep.
that. So you can, if you work for a very small brokerage, or one-man shop, or your realtor is a one-man shop, one-woman
still
shop,
have access.
you can have access to an immediate home search that is going to be updated every 15 minutes and email you something as soon as it hits the market. And I think
Yep.
that's the biggest thing, especially in like a spring market, which we're
Yep.
experiencing right now. So once you get the home watch set up for someone, it used to be you would wait until a Saturday or a Friday afternoon, you'd go show someone 5 or 6 houses. What are you guys seeing now? Like how does that work? What are you doing?
Well, I mean, they're going to get that bulk. Let's say we start them on a home watch. They're going to get that bulk list of homes, hopefully, of listings that are currently available. And we kind of have to go see them right away. And that's just what I understand. And that's why I would say, if you see something that you want to see and I didn't reach out to you first, tell me right away. And then we're going to go see it right away. And it's also a nice thing about having my mom work alongside me, is that one of us can usually be there.
Yeah.
So it's, unfortunately, we have to jump all the time, which can make stuff interesting, but it's part of the job.
Especially when we start to see, multiple buyers in the same price brackets
yeah, it
or
can be difficult.
criteria ranges. It can be a little bit challenging, but definitely needing to act immediately. Like this afternoon, an offer fell through on something, and the agent reached out to everybody that had shown it and was like, "Hey, is your buyer still interested? Because this offer fell through." And I literally had my buyer there in 45 minutes, and that is not something you can plan for. But if I had already been in an appointment or something, that would have not happened, and that's kind of tricky too. But it's just the how it is right now. Like that's
Yep.
how fast paced it is.
And when things are going like this, how have you guys managed buyers' expectations? I mean, we've all heard the adage that buyers are liars, you know, because
Yeah,
they
I
start
don't necessarily believe
wanting.
that.
Well, and it comes from the idea of you set up a home watch for someone, and
Mhm.
they, you know, they have these specific things that they need,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking for the perfect house, which is great. You know, like everyone wants to find the perfect house, but in reality, it's not really there. And
Mhm.
sometimes people end up buying something completely, you know, out of
Exactly.
what they wanted. How,
Right.
how do you guys have any good ideas as far as you're managing expectations for someone that is looking for the perfect house? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
more often than not, they're not going to be getting that, right?
I think open communication, and I'm very blunt with with people that work with me. I don't sugarcoat anything. I'm very real. You know, expectations are set right up front as far as like, so here's what's going to happen. You see something, you contact me immediately. We're going to try and get into it as soon as possible. If we can't, we may have to pass on it, and that's just the reality. Or you might even make an offer and lose out. You're going to have to trust me a little bit in the negotiation piece. If I'm telling you, I think you need to offer more than list price on this because there are multiple people coming in with offers, and you're telling me you really want this, if you don't trust me enough to do that, then you certainly may,
Right.
but you probably are not going to get the accepted offer on that. Does that mean that you wouldn't necessarily have a chance down the road? Because things don't always come together, or it can come together and fall apart. So, you know, there's 1,000 different scenarios that come up, but you got to trust me.
Yeah, like you just said, having an agent you can trust is really important because, especially maybe younger buyers who maybe
Yeah.
this is their first time, they're getting it from their family, from their friends, that
Yes.
this is what a home should cost, or this is
Yep.
what a home should be for you, and this is what you need. And a lot of times that raises their expectations to a point where you're just not in that same price range or that ballpark where
Yeah.
you need to kind of make a
Expe-
couple
yeah.
of, you know, sacrifices to get into that first home.
Yeah,
So,
the expectation, I think, of condition for first-time home buyers, when parents come through and are like, well, this is not right or whatever.
They're like knocking on the wall. I'm not really sure about this, you know.
I
Dad doesn't approve.
think, I think they
Alright.
forget
it's wood.
what they lived in,
Yeah.
you know, when they were 22
I think it's
or whatever.
it's sweet that you want your kids to have like the best of the best, and it's
If you're gonna
I'm
pay
gonna-
for it, that's
yeah,
fine.
if you're gonna
Take
pay
out
for
your
it.
checkbook, Daddy.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But reality is sometimes you have to learn. You have to learn how to do things. You
Mhm.
have to take a chance that you're
Mhm.
gonna screw up the carpet or
Mhm.
you know.
Well, and depending on the buyer and you know how well you how comfortable you feel with them,
Mhm.
you can really I think assert yourself a little bit by saying, you know, this may or may not be the right home. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you can only steer them to a degree, but helping them not make a bad decision. That's kind of our whole thing is
Well,
not
that's what,
spend
Just
too
that's what
nailed
we're
much.
it.
there for.
You
100%.
just nailed it.
We need to be, you know, we're not, we're representing a buyer in their best interest.
Would you not agree that our goal is not to sell you something, it's to make sure that we're guiding you in the way that you need to be guided, and that we are hoping to build a relationship that when you outgrow this house and want to build or buy the next house, that we're the ones that you're like, I trust them and I want to work with them again,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
we're not
I totally agree with you. We
Yeah.
don't sell houses. Yeah, like
No.
they sell themselves. So we just
Right.
help you do it. Mm-hmm.
I love that you said we're trying to
Yeah,
make sure that
well,
you're not making a bad decision.
And that was one thing when I started in the business, and we talked about it a little bit before, I worked with my mom who already had a successful business,
Yeah.
and you know, I didn't feel this pressure where I need to sell this house or you know, I'm not going to make rent or something like that.
Mhm.
So I guess I had a little bit of a cushion or a convenience to be able to say, well, I'm just going to do what's best for you, and that's how I've always tried to do my business, just making sure that
Absolutely.
it has nothing to do with me making money.
Absolutely.
It's going to happen eventually, but I'm not going to make it happen on this house.
You can't,
imagine
you can't
how
count your
frustrating this
chickens before they
business-
hatch. You know,
Bingo.
you've got to, you can't force someone to buy a house, and if you do, it's not going to end well for you.
Yeah, I talked about this long time ago with my broker at the time. I was like, you know, I'm sick of just trying to meet people's expectations. That's not what I'm in this business for, and I don't feel like I'm living up to my own potential by trying to meet your sales whatever. So I'm going to do this my way.
Right.
And after that, my business flourished. And it was literally because I was having fun with it and not being,
You were doing something you enjoyed.
well, yeah, and not being in it for the wrong reason. I'm
Yeah.
not doing this for money or for anybody else's pride.
And that's a
Well,
common
obviously-
misconception too. Is that
Obviously, it's
we're
a
here for-
job.
Yeah,
It is a job. We do make money doing it.
of course.
But if the people that get into it with the first intention of making money generally don't last very long.
No.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or they have really poor reputations and
We've showed clients over 100 houses. Like
over
it-
1,000, I'm sure.
I mean, like one client. I'm saying
oh,
100 houses.
yes,
Yeah.
one client.
Like it happens, and you're not like
Yeah.
generally my clients are like, we're really sorry that we keep
Yeah.
doing this to you, and it's like, guys, this is
okay.
totally okay. Like
Yeah.
this is okay. Like we're figuring it out. We're narrowing it down. We're getting close.
Yep.
And it's the majority. I think the average is like 12 houses or 13 houses or something like that. But
I have literally made this analogy for like the last 4 years, and it was super like off the cuff one day, but it really made a lot of sense and it really sat well with my buyers, so I've been using it ever since. But when we sit down for the initial consult, I'm like, we're dating right now. Eventually we're going to look at a couple of houses and you're going to feel like we can trust each other, and then we're going to get engaged with a buyer agency agreement, which means we're kind of
we'll elaborate on that.
we'll elaborate on that in another episode. But then when we find the house that we're going to write an offer on, that's when we get married,
Then the real fun starts,
and then it gets fun.
which we will talk about in another episode.
Yes.
But to kind of sum up what we discussed as far as what the process really looks like, your first step is to call a local realtor. Call someone that your family's worked with or that you know of or you saw on the internet, and it doesn't hurt to call more than one person. Everyone's personalities are different, everyone's styles are different. I'm not going to work well with everyone. I totally realize that. And so does everyone else here.
Yep.
Or call a lender first. Again, if you're with a local lender, give them a call, because chances are they'll be able to connect you with someone that's also a great realtor. After that, you get your home watch fired up. You have your first home buyer meeting with your agent. You discuss expectations, what you're looking for, expectations for both sides. Your wish list, your want list, your need list. Start looking at some houses, and then you submit an offer. And we're going to actually discuss offer to close in another video, but that kind of sums up this one. So thank you so much for tuning in to the buyer process, or part 1 of the buyer process, Home Selling Homies video. Thanks. Check us out on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Facebook.
Instagram.
Snapchat, apparently, because
We
of
don't have
Brad.
Snapchat.
We don't have a Snapchat yet. Maybe.
We do have
might.
Instagram though.
But we do have the Gram, or
Yeah.
Insta, as the kids are calling it these days.
If you have internet, you can find us.
Yeah. Just
And
Google Home Selling Homies. We'll show up.
You bet.
At the bottom of the page.
At the yeah, it'll be maybe page
Keep
2.
scrolling.
We're at the top, but page 2.
Oh, we're definitely on page 1.
somewhere.
Thanks,
Alrighty.
guys.
Bye.